So I thought if I put the word bastard in the title that it would be more of a draw, but we still have a pretty skimpy group this week. So the name of this presentation is The Bastard Child of Job Search Skills, or if you're from England, The Bastard Child of Job Search Skills. And I believe that the bastard child of job search skills is follow-up. I don't think anybody really likes follow-up. Once you send off your resume, most people just walk away, they're done with that, they've gotten credit for sending off a resume, and following up is something that we don't usually do. It seems too much like stalking, and in fact I'm hoping that at the end of this, if we have time, that those of you who have had a good experience because of follow-up are going to be sharing those experiences with us. So let me see how many of you do this. You send out resumes, I'm not finished, or you fill out applications, and then you wait to be contacted. How many? Be honest, how many? You don't do anything anymore. Now, that's almost everybody. You send out your stuff, and then you sit by the phone, and you wait to be contacted. Okay. That would be you. How many of you, yes, you do have good posture. How many of you do this? You have a phone interview, or you have a face-to-face interview, or sometimes even multiple interviews, and then you wait to be contacted. Let me see those. Okay, not as many. This would be you. How big off? How big off? Do you do this? You meet somebody at a networking event. You exchange business cards. You wait for them to contact you. Anybody do that? Only 2. All right. Do you do this? You stir up your courage. You request an informational interview with somebody. You wait for a response.
No courage.
When does it morph from being that to being that?
50 years.
Waiting. Are you guilty of this? You requested help, people helped you, and this was your response to them. You made them wait because you never got back to them. Maybe you might have thanked them initially, and then that was the end of it. You walked away. They never knew if you'd gotten the job, you'd hung yourself from the rafters, you'd moved, you were no longer looking for work. They didn't know because you never contacted them again. Even after they went to bed, they gave you some time, they might have made some suggestions, and you made them wait because you never got back to them. You forgot what that felt like. So when do you follow up? You should follow up all the time. Follow up is probably the job skill that most people forget about, they get distracted, they just don't do it. You should follow up every time you submit a resume, unless they say, no phone calls, and then you might be able to follow up with an email. But try to follow up. Did you receive my resume? I applied for this job. Did you receive it? Could you open it? What is the next step? I feel as though I have all the qualifications you're looking for. Would it be possible for me to set up a time to come by and talk to you? After an interview, obviously, most people send a thank you, I think. Most people send a thank you. So you've been schooled in that. But then what happens after that initial thank you? We would hope that during the interview, your last question was, so what's the next step? Where do we go from here? When will a decision be made? I talked to a Google recruiter one time who said his favorite question to him at the end of an interview was, when should I expect to hear from you? He said, that puts a little bit of responsibility on me. And so at any rate, let's say that they say, well, we're hoping to make a decision by the end of next week. So if I haven't heard from you, say by Friday, would it be all right for me to contact you the following Monday and see where you are in the process? So always see if you can get permission to reach out to them. And then if you have gotten permission to reach out to them and you haven't heard from them, reach out to them. Do what you say you're going to do. That establishes trust. It establishes a feeling that you are reliable. You do what you say you're going to do. After a rejection, do not do not do what some of my clients have done, where when they are rejected, they send a really nasty response about, you know, with some letters, little acronyms here and there. No, don't do that. After a rejection, thank you so much for letting me know that a decision had been made. I'm sorry I was not the one chosen. Best of luck to the person who did get the role. I would still love to be part of this team, part of this company. If a position should come open that's a little bit better fit for my skill set, I hope you'll contact me again. In the meantime, I would like to stay in touch. I will reach out and invite you to join me on LinkedIn. So after all the trouble that you've gone to establish the relationship, to build those bridges with those people, to learn about the company, to prepare for the interview, you've invested so much. Why walk away from that? You want to keep in touch with them. Very often we see that somebody didn't get the first job that they interviewed for with a company, but they impressed somebody on the interview team or whatever, and later that person calls them up and says, listen, you may not remember me. I was on the panel that interviewed you for the position of so-and-so. We went with another candidate. The job is open again. Are you still interested? We would love to have you on board. Please reapply. Or as in the case of one of our people, Pete Reitmeyer, lots of you know him, he went to lots of trouble. Launchpad really helped him. There's a whole team of people in Launchpad that helped him prepare for an interview with CyberTrader, the Charles Schwab E-Trade equivalent. And it was a job that was something that he hadn't exactly done before, but he had really good transferable skills for that position. And he didn't get it. And he mock interviewed for it. He had really good answers to questions. He had done a ton of research, and he was devastated. He had somebody on the inside of the company that was rooting for him. He didn't get it. And he followed up with thank you letters to everybody. And months later, somebody from San Jose, a VP from San Jose, contacted him and said, do you remember me? I served on that panel, and we didn't go with you, but we have another position that I think you're a much better fit for. If you're still looking for work, we would love for you to apply and use my name. And he got that job, so he worked for CyberTrader for a good long while. After a rejection, after you meet somebody and you've met them at a networking meeting, you've met them in a chance meeting, you've met them in a restaurant, you've met them, you want to follow up, connect with them on LinkedIn, you want to follow up and send them a little email and say, would like to stay in touch. I love the fact that you're interested, that we share this interest in whatever. Let's stay in touch. In fact, there's a conference dealing with this topic coming up in a few weeks. If I'm going to go, if you'd like to go with me, would love to have the companionship. Something. If somebody helps you, send them an email and let them know how much you appreciate that help. Stay in touch. If somebody inspires you, you hear a presentation, you read something that somebody posted on LinkedIn, somebody has shared a book title or an article or whatever, somebody inspires you, I just want you to know, that touched me, that made a difference. And I would love to stay in touch with you on that. Anytime somebody intersects your life in a positive way, reach out and follow up and let them know that was an important thing that happened to you. And begin to create and nurture those relationships. All right, lots of you have heard this story. Jim Adcock is a former Launchpad member. He serves on our board of directors. He's the vice president of Launchpad Job Club. And the first time, he's been employed maybe 3 or 4 times in the course of the last 10 years or so. And the first time he was in Launchpad, he was complaining to me, the job market was really soft, and he was pacing back and forth, and he said, this is so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I send out resumes, nobody gets back to me. It's just a black hole. Nobody gets back to me, and I'm just wasting my time, and it's so frustrating. And I said, well, are you following up? And he said, what do you mean following up? Well, when you send out a resume, do you contact them? Do you say, did you receive it? Could you open it? What's the next step? Now that I have you on the phone, could I set up a time to come by and talk to somebody? And as I was talking, he said, a thought just occurred to me. Do you suppose they are not getting my resume? My resumes might be getting filtered out because of the sexual nature of my name. I said, no. I don't think that's happening. He said, I'm going to call and ask. Fine. Good luck. So the very first place he called, he said, I applied for this job a few weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything, and it occurred to me that perhaps my resume did not get to you, that it was filtered out. It's in your spam file or something because of the sexual nature of my name. Could you check your files? So what name do they immediately remember? His name. And so she went and looked in her files, and she said, we don't have it. Why don't you fax me your resume? And so he faxed the resume. She took one look at it. She said, wow, you do have all the qualifications we're looking for. Could we set up an appointment? And he ended up getting that job. And when he got that job, he sent me an email to read to Launchpad that said, if you have any of these names, you can try this. I did not read that list. However, you don't need to have a sexual name. All you need to say is, if they allow you to make phone calls, just say, I'm following up. For some reason, lots of companies are not receiving my email or are not being able to open my email. Could you possibly check your files and just see if you received it? So the sexual piece is not really necessary. You had a comment.
My daughter's name is Venus.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that. She has two beautiful, accomplished daughters who both work for GM. And Maria was telling, so I looked up her daughters on LinkedIn or somewhere, and I saw that one is named Venus. And I wondered about that, if that was something that would immediately get her spammed. Yeah. So at any rate, follow up. Did you receive it? Could you open it? What is the next step? And then after being hired, you also want to keep following up as well. He kept connected with all of his he's a SharePoint guy, and he kept connected with all of his SharePoint people. And one of the other times when he was unemployed, he tried to do what we tell you to do, connect with recruiters from various companies where you want to work. And that works very well for some people. It wasn't working for him, so he reached out instead, followed up with all of his SharePoint community and said, I'm looking for a job. And that, he had an interview within 24 hours and an offer within 48. And so, so keeping in touch with people, following up, staying connected, very, very important. Okay, Tim Sanford was a speaker here a few months ago. We love it when you get jobs, if you will speak and tell us how you got that job, what was the process that got you hired. And some of our very best presenters were those people, those success stories. And Tim got a job with ExxonMobil in Houston, and he said, he says he'll come back and talk more to Launchpad in Austin about various aspects of his job search. So he gave this great speech, which was titled "A Tale of Two Offers," and he talked about getting the first offer was with a small startup company, and they changed the salary at some point, and they were a little bit less responsive when he was trying to get in touch with them. It was just not as professional an organization. And then the other offer was with ExxonMobil. And the two companies were so different in the way that they treated him and interacted with him and so forth, and he ended up taking the Exxon job. But he sent me an email and gave me these statistics, and he said there were approximately 80 people in the audience that day. He spoke to 12 people after his talk, roughly, approximately a dozen. He received 2 business cards. We always tell you to have business cards, and he received 2 business cards. One person asked him to consult on an idea that particular job person had, and they asked for his advice on that idea. One person asked him to be a personal coach to them in their job search. After the interview, he received 5 emails from Launchpad people. He received 12 LinkedIn requests. Only 5 of those people had personal notes, although we tell you always, always, always in our classes and in our presentations, when you reach out and try to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, now the new LinkedIn forces you to do that. They will not allow you to just send that standard one-size-fits-all invitation. If your LinkedIn has not yet transitioned over to the new one, this will come to a surprise. But you should always, anytime you reach out to somebody, you should always tell them, especially if it's somebody that you don't know, to explain why you want to connect with them or how you know them, where you met them. Beverly?
I just want to note that if you do it on your phone, you don't get the option.
You know, I asked about that at Product Camp. We had, Mark Miller gave a presentation on it, and somebody was in the audience who said, yes, you can do it on your phone. So there's a new feature
Yeah, but if you just
that you're
connect,
able to.
it bypasses. So you have to do it a different way. You can't just hit that.
You can't just hit connect.
Yep.
It automatically goes off the phone.
So it's better to always explain. And if you're trying to connect with a recruiter and they don't know you, just say, you know, sometimes the recruiters will say on their LinkedIn thing, I hire these people. I hire hardware engineers and firmware engineers or whatever. Sometimes they tell you exactly which kinds of people they screen for. But it doesn't really matter. Just say, hi, I am a, whatever your career field is. I feel I have skills that could be used by ABC company. Please connect with me. And recruiters will almost always connect with you. They want people in their network. If you're connected with them, then when they're doing a search for a particular kind of job, you're going to come up high. So you should always connect with recruiters if you can. So he was a little surprised at the kinds of interactions that he got after his talk. And then he said, I do want to give a shout out to John Rothgeb, who's not here today because he's on an interview. But John Rothgeb is a salesperson, and salespeople generally are masters of the whole follow-up thing. But he said he spoke to John after the presentation, and John said, by the way, I have a few ideas that I think could help your presentation. If you want to hear what those ideas are, here's my card. And so he promised to follow up, and in a couple of days, and 2 days later, boom, he followed up. And then 2 days after that, he requested a LinkedIn connection and explained again, just to remind you who I am, I'm the one who did this. And so Tim said he was very impressed with all of that. Now he said John is in sales and he understands the drip method of contact, a few days later, contact, a few days later, contact, a few days later, contact, so that by that time they know who you are. There's a fine line, I think, between contact, stalking, harassment, and you have to kind of be sensitive to when you're being obnoxious. But at any rate, so what Tim did for John, he did not do this for any of the other people because they didn't seem to want to continue that relationship. But what he did for John was he gave him a warm intro to at least 3 peer-level sales leaders in tech firms that he knew, so he connected him with them. in Austin, plus an executive sales recruiter out of San Francisco. So at any rate, the more you establish a mutually beneficial relationship, and you do that by continually following up, the better it can be. Gary O'Neill speaks every quarter to Launchpad Job Club. He is the person who is the local recruiter who has always been considered to be an expert on LinkedIn. He is the person who created the video that is on the launchpadjobclub.org website as to how he uses LinkedIn to find talent. And some of you were here when he spoke in the last quarter and talked about a job that they were trying to fill, he and his staff of recruiters. And they had gone into LinkedIn and they had found, let's say, 50 people that might be a good match. Gary had sent out a mass email to, let's say he sent out a mass email to all 50 saying, we're looking for people who might be interested in this possibility. It's an Austin job that is looking for these skills. It's with this kind of company. If you're interested in learning more about the job, please send me your email. Send me your resume. And on the bottom, he signs his name. Obviously, they have his email address, and he always puts his phone number under his name. And so let's say he sends that out to 50 people. He gets 30 resumes, and he said, guess how many phone calls I got? 1. And he said, and that person said, I'm very interested in the position. Can we get together and talk about it further? And he said, I'm having coffee with him this afternoon. Most recruiters, according to Gary, most recruiters want you to follow up. Follow up, reach out. Don't just send the resume and wait for me to call you. Follow up. Follow up.
Well, Kathy, my thing is, okay, so you submit your resume. Doesn't that already tell you that you want the job? Why do you?
Sure, you and 29 others.
Right. So you want to reaffirm, hey, I still want the job. I sent you the resume. I still want to know where should we go to meet?
Right. One of the things Gary talked about was how busy they all are. And so reading through a big pile of resumes takes some time. And if somebody from that pile calls up and says, hey, I'd really like to talk to you. I sent you my resume. I know you're really busy. Could we get together and talk face to face? And Gary said he loves that. He loves that. A similar situation, my husband used to work for a small company. They needed somebody to work in their front office. They put a job posting on Craigslist. This company does not have an HR department. They're too small. They got 80 resumes from Craigslist. And nobody really had time to read those resumes. I don't know that they knew exactly what they were looking for on those resumes. Didn't have an HR person, so the resumes kind of sat there. One person called and said, I put in my resume from your Craigslist ad. I'd very much like to talk to you about it. Absolutely, when can you come by? She's the only person that got an interview. She didn't get the job, as it turned out. She was a recent college graduate. She wanted this as a stepping stone to something else. It wasn't exactly a good fit. But she's the only person who got an interview. They ended up never going through that pile of resumes, never looking at those people, never contacting those people. They hired somebody they knew, they trusted, and they said, you're smart, we'll train you to do this job. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Differentiate yourself from the pack of other people. Just follow up, and even if you just say, I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure you got it, I wanted to make sure that that you understand. You might have thought that because I've worked only in this kind of company that I'm not interested, but I'm very interested in this, could we meet? And sometimes just that will get you noticed and get you talked to over everybody else. Some of you remember Gina Helfrich. She was a past speaker at Launchpad. She talked about how she had come to Austin and how she had started her company here. Let me just quickly give you that overview. She has a PhD in something like, I don't remember, diversity studies, women's studies, something like that. She ran the diversity program at Harvard for a number of years. So she has two major interests, and one is One is women and in the workforce and equality for women in the workforce, but then other minorities as well. And just the whole business of diversity in the workforce. And we all know that tech companies are trying desperately to get more diversity in their workforces. And it sometimes seems to be a struggle for them. They don't know where to find the qualified people. They don't know where to do the outreach. And then there's just a lot of other things. So Gina had, through Austin Digital Jobs, hooked up with a recruiter in Austin, and together they started a company called Recruit Her. That was, their goal was to work with the tech companies, try to help them get more diverse workforces, more women, more minorities, more veterans, even more people with disabilities, and make their workforces really diverse. We loved that. I loved that. They talked about, in the course of the Austin Business Journal article on Recruit Her, they mentioned a book that, I don't remember the name of it anymore, but it was on how to recognize unconscious bias, and it had a test in there that I took. And it was a fascinating expose of the unconscious bias that we all have. How quickly do we associate positive or negative characteristics to certain kinds of people. Is really fascinating. And so anyway, Gina came and talked about her job search. And unfortunately, her wonderful company with its wonderful mission only lasted a year. And so it's gone out of business. Her partner got a wonderful, something like a director of diversity in employment or something like that with a high-tech company. I can't remember which one. And Gina was looking for a job. So what did she do? She reached out to all of the people that she had met in Austin. So I was on that big list, and she sent us a group email, and she said, I've closed down my company. I'm now looking for a job myself. These are the roles that I feel I could fill. Maybe 8 different job titles or 8 different functions that she could do. And so I sent her, I introduced her to 2 people, and I said what a great person she was and the skills that she had. And so she followed up immediately, copying me on her outreach letter to those people that I had introduced her to. I told her about 2 different jobs. She copied me immediately, saying that she had reached out and applied for those jobs. But she didn't have a job for months. But she kept us in the loop. This is the status. This is what I'm doing. I'm scheduling a lot of informational interviews. I'm having a lot of coffees with people. I'm talking about my skills. And she finally sent us all a group email and said, thank you all for the help that you provided me. I have gone to work for a former employer. I'm in charge of this and this and this, and including diversity. Since then, I found Duo. Duo just is a security company that was just featured at the Built-in Austin, Built-in Brews. And one of their 23 job postings was for somebody to be a director of diversity in the workplace. I sent that to Gina, and I said, I know that you're working, but if you know other people that are similarly interested in this thing, here's a job posting. And so she said she would consider to pass it on. So the follow-up, the continual follow-up, yes, I took your advice. Yes, I've acted on that recommendation. Yes, I have done these things. Following up and keeping these people informed of what you're doing is a huge piece of the job search process. We get complaints all the time where somebody will say, yeah, somebody used your name and asked for an informational interview, and I gave them 30 minutes and some suggestions, and that's the last I heard of them. What do you know? Are they working? They want to know what happens to you. Keep them in the loop once you've established that relationship. The same thing happens with Jeff Johannekman. How many of you know Jeff Johannekman? 1, 2, 3. Jeff Johannekman has been a frequent speaker here. He was a producer for Atari. How many of you know Atari? Okay. All the old people, yes, your hands are up.
Hey.
So Jeff also has a meetup group that's lots of fun that's called Austin Geeks and Gamers. And they do crazy wild things. and he doesn't really like the world of the gaming world. He feels that it sends people off in a different direction than they should be in. But it's been lucrative to him, so whenever he needed to put kids through college or whatever, he'd go back to gaming. And then when he didn't need quite so much money, he would do his real love, which was career coaching and training and presentations and that sort of stuff. But every time he is looking for a job, he also has this huge email list. Make sure everybody is BCC'd and not CC'd. And he would periodically, like every quarter, he would say, okay, all of you have somehow been involved in my job search in some way, and let me give you an update on what's going on with me. Since I last sent you a bulletin, I've had 10 interviews. 5 of them I was overqualified, and these 5 I was underqualified. My new target companies are these, if anybody has a connection with any of these. But thank you so much. Keep those cards and letters coming. And again, thank you for all the help and support that you've given me in my job search. And then when he goes to work, he continues to, oh, and one more thing he usually would put on the bottom of those little emails. Listen, as you can well imagine, I've got some time in my hands. Would love to meet with you and find out what's going on in your life and see if there's anything I can do to help you. I have a truck. You know, so it's like that. So it's a two-way street. How can I help you? And here are the things that I would appreciate it if you could help me with. So keeping people engaged and keeping people connected, it's huge. And once you get a job, it doesn't stop. Then you're in a position to help other people. So it all continues. Oh, be quick. Yes, and I forgot it already. Don't forget. Yeah, what was that? And I'm the world's worst about all of this. So this is definitely a do as I say, not as I do. I am never quick. I'll get back to people, 3 weeks later and say, listen, I'm so sorry for the delay in my getting back to you. But be fast, and I always appreciate it when I send something to somebody and they're right on it. Thank you so much, I'm on it, here's what I've done already. They're right on it. And people looking for a job, you're living in your phones and your computers. And so, how many of you went to product camp? Okay, only 3 of the folks that are here, but I know a lot more of you, a lot more Launchpad people went. Did you make connections at product camp? How many of you made connections? How many of you reached out to those connections within the next 24 hours after product camp? Did you? Did you? Did you?
No, but I ran into the guy sitting next to me about a week later at another event. An unrelated.
Right.
She stalked him.
What a coincidence. So, yeah, stalking.
Did you talk to him?
So just to get this on the video, she said, so none of these 3 people reached out to folks that they had met and followed up with them. Although Julia said she saw one guy that she met at another unrelated event.
Did you talk to him at that event?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was like a serendipitous follow-up. But I have to tell you that 3 people that I met immediately followed up with me, either by email or by phone. And I had given them my card, and they followed up with me and said, hey, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd like to get with you. And I'm embarrassed to say I did accept their LinkedIn connections, but call me and let's get together. Have not done that, and now I gotta retrieve those phone calls or those emails and say, I'm going out of town. I'm kind of busy, but but thanks for reaching out. But they were on it. They were right on it. And within 24 hours, they all 3 contacted me and said, let's keep this going. Let's not let this new connection die.
Well, Kathy, you got to put it in perspective. I mean, look at you. You influence so many people. How can you possibly reach out to so many people? They have to.
You're right, Richard. Why am
So
I
you
even having?
never apologize.
Thank you for just giving me this great big old pass for being rude. I'm so busy. But
It's not
if
really
somebody
bad.
reaches out to you, and successful people very often are the ones that are the first to get back to you. They are. it's always amazing to me. I reached out on behalf of Kevin Krasinski to Mary Scott Neighbors, who used to be a commissioner of the Texas Workforce Commission. She has her own company. She's a big deal. She was a state-appointed executive, and I just I've just seen her speak at conferences, and I reached out to her and said, here's how I know you, and I have somebody that I think you should talk to. Here's his background. She responded to me within an hour. This very important executive person responded to me immediately and said, thank you so much. I will definitely reach out to Kevin. And that connection was made. Sometimes the busiest and most important people are the ones that are the most courteous. Sometimes not, but sometimes. Be quick. Do what you say you'll do. If you say you're going to get back to him in a day, get back to him in a day, even if you don't have the news yet. Keep them informed, but it's a trust issue. Who's going to hire somebody that says, I'll do this, I'll bring that by, I'll call you, I'll contact you, and then you don't?
Well, what about when they say they're going to do it and they don't?
Well, they have a job. And so Richard said, what if they say they're going to do something for you and they don't? That tells you something about them. Do you want to work for somebody who's that irresponsible? Or are you going to cut them some slack because they are so busy? Lots of times people think that you have time. Aren't you? Are most of you not busier than you ever were when you were working?
I've never been so busy in my life.
That's right. Looking for a job is ceaseless. It's night and day. It's weekends. You're working overtime. You're not getting any paid for it, and you're working hard. This is hard work.
But it's growing you as a
This is
person.
hard work. Yeah. But do what you say you'll do. If you say, I will do this for you, then make sure that you do that. Oh, and that's the end. Surely there was a more bang-up ending than that. I guess not. So tell me about follow-ups that you've done. I'll entertain 3 of them. Anybody have a success story from following up? Okay.
Sort of, but so I applied for a company and I was really interested in it. I kind of stalked them. I applied and I immediately got an email, and in this case I got an email from a recruiter, a real life person I could talk to. And I was really surprised. I said, well, we're not going to continue with you. And I asked them why. I responded back and said, thank you so much. I said, I really thought my skills were really close to this job. Can you tell me why I wasn't considered? And she said, well, actually, we just got so many applicants that we decided to leave people out by getting the most technical people. She goes, but I know we're hiring in about 3 or 4 months. Would you like me to contact you back? And I said, yes. So strange enough, I ended up getting another job, and sure enough, I got a call from her saying, hey, would you like to apply again? And so she did follow up, and I have followed up since then, because now I'm looking for work again, and now they haven't contacted me back. But I would have never known had I not asked her, and maybe not have gotten that opportunity. So it's always worth a chance if you can get to a live person.
So you think you should follow up again then?
I have followed up, but we'll see what happens. She's busy.
So when is it too much?
When is it too much? Sometimes, you've called, you left a message, you've called, you left a message. One of the tricks that Gary O'Neill suggests, when he's doing cold calls, is that he'll call somebody and he'll say, hi, I'm doing some networking, I'm reaching out to some people, and let's say that you're trying to get an informational interview. And you say, I'm a project manager with 5 years experience managing these kinds of projects. I'm trying to see if I can transition to this new industry. I'm hoping that you'll be able to spare 30 minutes of your day to give me some information and advice. And please call me back at this number. And so you don't hear from them. So then you wait, let's say 4 days, you call them back again, and you say, hi, I'm Kathy Lansford, I'm touching base again, I'm doing some, trying to reach out to some people to see if I can get some information. I'm a project manager, I'm trying to transition to this new industry. I'm hoping that you can spare 30 minutes of your day to answer a few questions, give me some information and advice. I know you're terribly busy, but if you'd be able to do this, here's my number. And so you do this 3 times. So let's say you wait another 4 or 5 days. Now we've got the weekend in there. So you're going to call, let's say, the next Wednesday. And the 3rd time, his advice is that you say, hi, this is Kathy Lansford again. I just wanted to touch base one more time. I was hoping to be able to meet with you for just 30 minutes or so, ask you a few questions. I'm thinking about transitioning from this industry to your industry, and I was hoping you'd be able to give me some information or advice. I can see you're really busy, and I certainly don't want to be a pest. This will be my last time to reach out to you. And sometimes when you say that, I don't want to be a pest, this will be my last time to reach out to you, they pick up the phone and they say, listen, I'm so sorry. I intended to get back with you when you very first called, and I've been out of town and I haven't been able to do it, but sure, I'd be happy to meet with you. So sometimes that approach, you're not being pushy, you're just you know, it's kind of the drip thing, and then you give them an out. You're so busy, if you're not interested, you don't have time, we're done. This will be my last time. And sometimes they'll answer you and they say, listen, I really don't have time right now. I'm just kind of overwhelmed. Could you suggest somebody else I could reach out to that might have more time? And so then, if you get another name, then you reach out to that person and you say, hey, so-and-so suggested I contact you. I'm doing some research. Would you be able to meet with me for 30 minutes? So it's that kind of thing. And yes, yeah, darn.
So there was, you know how we always talk about trying to get a network connection, you know, to get referred in. Well, there was this one company where I couldn't find one. So, and I learned from the past not to let things sit too long because, you know, the job might go away. So I went ahead and applied online, but then I went onto LinkedIn and figured out who at least the executive over that role was, and found their email and sent them an email. And this was like on a Saturday night. On Monday morning, I got an email immediately back from them saying, oh yes, you know, I'll make sure I get you into the interview queue. You know, I got through the first round of interviews, but then they started asking about salary, and when I asked their range, I knew that we couldn't talk any further. But at least the follow through, and I thanked them for their help and just said, you know, if you want to reconsider, I can bring all this other value that you might not be able to get with, you know, a less senior person.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's very smart. And so just to get it on the video, so she said she didn't know who the hiring manager was, so she reached out to a higher level person within that stream or whatever, that channel, and reached out to that person. Immediately got called for an interview. They couldn't come together on the salary, but the fact that when she followed up and said, yeah, we're too far apart on salary, but if you were able to reconsider, here are the additional skills that I can bring. You'll really get more bang for your buck because I can, in addition to what the job calls for, I can also bring all of these things to it. So you're just providing additional information within your follow-up. And it could be that they're never going to be able to hire you, but somebody else will contact them and say, listen, I'm looking for a senior level marketing person. Do you know anybody that you could recommend? You know, we had a person that, you know, she couldn't come to work for us because we're too small, but great, you know, it seems to have great skills. And so you can network that way. They can help you with the lead going the other direction.
I had an interview about 10 days ago with a firm that I thought was a good candidate for. And last Friday, after I was so inspired by Launchpad, I decided I would drop off some cookies for them. Just saying thank you for the interview, you know, hope your new build out is working well. Hadn't heard a thing, decided I must not be a good candidate. I knew they had 4 candidates. And so today I thought, you know what, I'm going to try one more time. So I sent an email this morning about 8:15. It's just saying, you know, thank you, hope your build out's going well. Just wanted to check and see how the position was for the office coordinator. Within 5 minutes, I had an email back saying, we have 2 more interviews next week. We will be making a decision by the end of next week. So at least I know I'm still in the bucket.
Yes, yes. And so she had an interview, sent her thank you, dropped off some cookies. Sometimes that's viewed as bribery, but sometimes they don't care because it's cookies. And so there's that. And so then she made one more outreach asking what the decision was and got some information. The interview process is still going. And so just touching base and being polite about it, saying, you know, where are we in the process? I'm still very interested. Sometimes it's also a good idea to remind them, just in case you've forgotten. here's a thumbnail sketch of my qualifications. One time I had a client who had a Monday morning, 8 o'clock or something like that, interview, and when she asked how long will you be interviewing, they said, we're going to be interviewing people all week long. And so she asked me, when should I send the thank you? And I said, I would send 2. I would send one right after you interview, the way you're supposed to, and then I'd send another one that's going to get to them at the end of the week and say, I was the very first person you interviewed for this position. I know you've been interviewing all week long. It occurred to me that you may have forgotten by now who I am and what I can bring to the table in this position. So let me remind you of my qualifications. Boom, 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 boom. She ended up getting the job. I'm sure not just because of that, but so follow up in whatever way that you possibly can. It makes a difference.